Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. On behalf of JCC Chicago, I am Eileen Ullman. I'm the Director of Community Engagement for JCC, and it's my pleasure to welcome you and to welcome Barbara Cohn, who is going to be leading our discussion today on the Detroit Public Library, which, if you're looking at the screen, you can see is exquisite. So I know we're in for an interesting meeting. Barbara, welcome to Chicago virtually.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Barbara and I discovered, talking this morning, that her husband, Sheldon Cohn, had actually been here in Chicago presenting his film, The Pickle Recipe. We're trying to decide how long ago that was. We think it was about 2016. I see Susan clapping. Susan remembers the film. So, you know, what we've discovered in this time of COVID is that we're making connections and finding connections with people all over the country in ways that we weren't able to do when we weren't doing virtual programming. So there's the cloud behind the silver lining behind the cloud. So Barbara, welcome, and we're anxious to learn from you today.
Well, thank you. Again, thank you for having me. This is actually the first time I've lectured to anywhere outside of Michigan, so I'm so thrilled to be here. So you're actually looking at the cover of my book, The Detroit Public Library, an American Classic. I really wanted to start off discussing the genesis of why Patrice Merritt and myself did the book. Patrice Merritt was the executive director of the Detroit Public Library Friends Foundation. And we started an art and architectural tour in 2013. And at our very first public tour, we had no idea if anyone would show up, and 75 people showed up. We were shocked. We were surprised. We had a wonderful tour. And at the end of the tour, people clapped and thanked us, and people cried. People started sharing stories of what the library meant to them, stories from going with their parents or studying at school. And one question kept coming up over and over again: do you have a book on this beautiful building? So Patrice and I made a pinky promise. And in 2015, we started writing the book. It was released in 2017. It was published by Wayne State University Press, who was a pleasure to work with. And this is our book I'm presenting today. Our idea was a community book. Nobody was paid for this book. No one got royalties, no personal. All royalties or any proceeds goes back to the library. There were 18 different photographers who donated their works and their talent. There's over 200 photographs in the book, both historic and contemporary. So if you end up purchasing a book, which of course you should, feel good about it because a portion goes back to the library. So these two photographs are in our book. We like to call this our Alfred Hitchcock moments, where Alfred Hitchcock would always put himself in his movie somewhere. On the top photo, you see Patrice in the yellow dress giving a tour to a group of ladies, and I'm actually there also. Actually, I forgot I'm there, I'm right there. And on the bottom here, I am giving a tour to a group of Cub Scouts, which was so much fun. So today I'm gonna take you through the Detroit Public Library, but I'm gonna put a Jewish lens, some Jewish connections I wanted to bring to you. I'm going to talk about some early Jewish commissioners. The first Detroit Public Library I'll show you, the Ginsburg branch, which was known as the Jewish branch, the building of the library from the first time it was built to renovation and today, the art and architecture, some wonderful Jewish artists that have worked there. And I'm going to end with a great program we started called Lighting Up Literacy. So there's six individuals that were on the Detroit Public Library Commission. Each of these individuals made a unique and significant contribution to the Detroit Public Library system. Excuse me one moment here, I'm just gonna clip that, there we go. So the first one is Magnus Butzel. He actually served, he was the first Jew to be on the Library Commission. He served for 17 years. He actually recognized that a public library is for all people and should serve as a municipal asset. He passed away in 1900, so he served for 17 years to upon his death. Next gentleman was Bernard Ginsberg, and he served for 5 years. He was an advocate to build the new library, which my book is about, and set off on an inspection trip throughout several different cities throughout the United States, looking at libraries, and came back with it and reported on in some of the attributes that he really liked or didn't like. Interesting enough, a branch was also named in his honor. The next one was David Heinemann. David Heinemann served for 2 years on the commission, but as a side note, he actually designed the flag of the city of Detroit in 1907. You're looking at his design on the left, although the flag was not officially adopted as the city flag until 1948, and you can see the flag on the right side, but that was David Heinemann's contribution. Next was Rabbi Leo Franklin. Rabbi Leo Franklin served for 21 years. He was president 3 different times. And he was actually a strong advocate against censorship and supported the public's freedom to read. A very important man and served for a long time, very well respected in the community. He also was the rabbi at Temple Bethel. Henry Myers served for 4 years. He actually supported branch libraries. And under when he was the commissioner, I think they developed 4 or 5 or 6 libraries, branch libraries. And he also, and I'm gonna show you later, a surprise, he also donated a presidential book of letters from all the presidents of the United States. Wonderful, we're gonna take a look at that. And the last one was Rabbi Leon Fromm, who was the rabbi at Temple Israel, and he served for 15 years. He was also orchestrated the expansion of the Detroit Public Library in the early 1960s. Okay, you are looking at the first freestanding library, Detroit Public Library, which opened in 1877. It opened in its own building. It was actually called the Center Park Library. It was located on Gratiot Street. The style was Second Empire, which was developed in Paris under Napoleon III. It was a very popular style for governmental and public buildings in the 1860s up through 1900. It's characterized by that mansard roof, which you're looking at, which also they say looks like a wedding cake with all those tiers. It was actually created for additional space at the top. It was very elaborate and a lot of ornamentation on it. It cost $124,000 at the time, which is equivalent to about 2.5 million in today's day. And here you can see how elaborate it was. It was demolished in 1931, but looking at this, you can see, wow, how beautiful it was. There was these screens here. The librarians actually stood behind them, kind of like a bank. And there was these big, huge wrought iron columns that extended from the floor all the way to the ceiling. And there was skylights up there. And you can see in the background, these are all books, these bookshelves all the way around. Here's another detail of this incredible library that had these interesting kind of book stacks that were connected by these wrought iron catwalks, and you can walk all the way through it. And you can see people actually looking back. This was actually the reading room. Unfortunately, it was demolished. Would have loved to have seen it today's day and age. So at one time, the Detroit Public Library had 46 branches throughout Detroit. Branches could be a storefront, it could be in a school, and it could be standing on its own. This is the Ginsberg branch that opened up in 1916, and this was actually named for the Commissioner Bernard Ginsberg that I showed you before. This was actually built in an area which there were many immigrants, especially from Eastern Europe, many Jewish immigrants. It was located on Brewster Street. And here you're looking at the lineup of the children actually waiting to come in on a Saturday morning. This was typical of a Saturday morning lineup for Story Hour, which was one of the most popular programs. This is another wonderful photograph, historic, I found. And it was kind of known as the Jewish branch. And you can actually see, I actually left the writing down here, that was written on the back of this photograph, Jewish neighborhood after opening. And you can see this little boy here, you can see his payas right here. So it was actually a beautiful branch. It had hardwood floors. There was an adult reading room, a children's reading room. There was a story hour room and a kitchen, and it cost $40,000 in the day. It was demolished also. So the Detroit Public Library is a Carnegie Library. Andrew Carnegie donated $375,000 for the building of the Woodward Detroit Library. He donated money to over 2,500 libraries throughout the world. And there are 61 Carnegie Libraries in Michigan. So I did a little research. In Illinois, there were 105 Carnegie Libraries, but I really don't know to date how many there are now, but I know there was a lot done in Illinois. So Carnegie had a formula about giving money for a library. You had to be able to demonstrate the need for a library. You must be able to financially maintain the library, and you had to be able to prove it. The money could not be used for the building site. So you already had to have the building site or some other forms that you got for the building site. And it must be free service to all. So once the money was secured from Carnegie, Cass Gilbert was chosen to be the architect. He was chosen from 20 different architectural firms, both locally and nationally. Gilbert studied at MIT. He used to work for McKim, Mead and White, and he went on a grand tour of Europe, sketching different architectural features that he would eventually use in his future designs. He was a well-known American architect and an early proponent of skyscrapers. And here I gave you a couple of photographs of the beautiful 60-story Woolworth building in New York, which opened in 1913. Some of the other buildings he did that you might be familiar with are Oberlin College, US Supreme Court building, St. Louis Library and Art Museum, and many municipal buildings in Minnesota. Gilbert had a philosophy about libraries. It should not just be a place to get a book, but should be a symbol of cultural life in the community. So with Cass Gilbert designing it, they started building the library in 1915. And I love this photograph. You know, when your parents used to talk about the olden days and horse and buggy? Here you have horse and buggy. This is the excavation of the Detroit Public Library. You can see these wonderful horses and these wagons and them digging. Quite remarkable. In the back, actually, you're looking at some houses. We'll take another look at that. But this library was really built in a residential area. World War I in 1917, everything stopped during that time. Poor transportation, labor, and building restrictions. The steel formation was up, but they waited for the war, and it ended up taking 6 years to build the Detroit Public Library. It opened in 1921. It cost $2.7 million, which in today's dates equivalent to about $35 million. Here's a fabulous photograph, an aerial view of the Detroit Public Library from 1921. It's remarkable that someone actually took this, but I will tell you what you're actually looking at. This is the back of the library. This is Woodward Avenue for people that are familiar with Detroit, which is the main avenue there. And we're talking 1921. So across the street, the DIA, the Detroit Institute of Art, was not built yet. It opened up in 1927. And the buildings actually line up exactly. The front doors line up together. This is Cass Avenue. And this was all residential at one point. And now this is really pretty much all Wayne State University. Here it is. This is our favorite photograph in the book. This is photographs from 1921, just after the Detroit Public Library opened. Isn't it beautiful? Mind you, that this building is 100 years old, and there was a big celebration this year, although with COVID, we're just doing it all virtually. But this is the library's centennial, the 100th year anniversary. So 100 years this building is. So this was taken again, 1921. You can see the pristine, beautiful exterior, the white Vermont marble, which it is. You're seeing original brickwork and the manicured lawn, beautiful terrace. And you're looking at two women either waiting to go into the library or coming out. So at this time, Detroit had just under 1 million people, population about 900,000 people. And remember, everyone went to the library. The next couple photographs I'm going to be showing you are the exterior, which is very hard to see with the naked eye. The next photograph is this cornice up here, which is really hard to see. And there's 12 different zodiac signs. I kind of grouped them all together. So we're going to take a look at those now. Here's the cornice, the very top and a corner of it, which is just beautiful. This old ivory tone, this is all terracotta you're looking at with the gold back. And you're going to see a lot of these themes throughout the library. A can of sleeves, a rosette, which you'll see everywhere, scalloped in faces, and that beautiful with that blue sky. And here are 12 different zodiac signs on that frieze. I just grouped them all together. I always like to point out to people that even on the fish here, Pisces, you can actually see their teeth and count their teeth. These are all in relief, by the way, a little elevated from the surface, about a ½ inch. Quite beautiful. By the way, the zodiac signs are actually also repeated throughout the building. They're in the floor, they're in the ceiling, they're all over. A lot of this was common during the Renaissance time. These are the main entrance doors. They are 15 feet tall, bronze doors. It doesn't look like this today. In the 1960s, they were pushed back, and now there's glass as you walk into them. But here you're seeing what they originally looked like. They were actually inspired from Donatello's sacristy doors from the Church of St. Lorenzo from Florence, Italy, and they were designed by John Donnelly, who did a lot of work at the New York Public Library. It consists of 10 different panels. On one side, you have Roman panels, and on the other side, you have panels. And it's about epic, tragic, poetry, philosophy, and comedy, all about literature. We're going to take a little sneak peek at one detail, but I want to point out the 3 words over the door: knowledge is power. And you see these wonderful eagles representing strength. There's so much symbolism in the library. So wonderful. Here you have one detail of one bronze panel. And each panel has 2 figures, a student and a teacher. And here we have Aristotle walking with a young Alexander. And look at all these details. You can see the Akana sleeve around. You can see Aristotle just draped with his toga, so to say. And you can see the wonderful sandals with the laces, and in the background, a fence, mountains, just the detail of this and the beautiful color. As you walk into the Detroit Public Library, you're looking at the entrance hall. So Cass Gilbert built the library in an Italian Renaissance style, looking back to classic Greek and Roman design and symbolism. I mentioned before that he did go to Italy and incorporated many of the architectural elements into this library. Frederick Wiley was the designer for the library interiors, and Wiley went to Harvard Law School, and after that he opened a design studio, Pearson Wiley, out of New York. The entrance hall is 25 feet tall. The walls and colonnade of Doric columns are pink Tennessee marble. And here you're looking at these solid columns that go from the ceiling, from the floor all the way to the ceiling. On the right is a detail of the ceiling tile. The colors are this beautiful faded antique gold and grays and blues. And in the center you have a rosette surrounded by classic ornamentation, starting with the bead and reel, egg and dart, and Greek key, all to symbolize this like old world elegance feeling. Just quite beautiful. So the first room off the main entrance was the original children's library. Now it's a teen center, and you must be 13-year-old to go into it. But at the time there was no teen center, so all the children were actually together. This photo was typical of the room and of the day. It's not a stage photo. You can see every child there has a book in its hand, but also a book, and they look to be reading. It's quite remarkable. In the background, you can see the original wood paneling and furniture, all quartered oak, meaning no knots. And you can also see this wonderful, historic, famous Cohn fireplace. At one time, the fireplace was a working fireplace. The most popular program at the library was story time, where the librarian would sit in front of the fireplace and read stories. So a little bit about this historic fireplace. It was designed by Poabic Pottery Company of Detroit, which opened in 1903, and it still actually continues today. There are 10 different ceramic tiles here depicting children's fairy tales and stories. And I don't know if you recognize any of them, or I could try to figure it out, but I'm going to point out a couple to you. Alice in Wonderland. This is Pocahontas and John Smith, Ulysses. We have Hansel and Gretel, Aladdin. And over the storybook tiles is a frieze of Aesop's fable, The Owl and the Birds, an owl represents wisdom. So I thought I'd give you another view of the fireplace. There you can see, isn't it beautiful? Pewabic pottery was created by Mary Chase Perry Stratton and Horace Calkins, and they were known for their iridescent glaze. You can see it through here. And unfortunately, when Mary Chase Perry Stratton died in the early 1916, that recipe was taken with her. But you can still see just the beautiful colors. I mean, look at this blue and this beautiful teal green. It's quite remarkable. I'm going to show you a close-up now, another close-up. This is Hansel and Gretel. And you can see just, a little bit left of that iridescent glaze. And again, some of those colors. Pewabic pottery actually came, we had them come to the library to look at it. We thought, oh, maybe we'll do a restoration. And they said, you know what, these tiles are over 100 years old and they're actually good condition. They really didn't want to touch them at this point. So, by the way, a little bit of research that there is Pewabic tile in Shed Aquarium, because Pewabic tile is really all over. I mean, it's in Washington, D.C. and a lot of people's home, and it's all over Detroit. But in Chicago, there is Pewabic tile at Shed Aquarium. So next time you're there, look around or ask somebody where it is. I couldn't find pictures to show you on the internet. I do apologize. So over the fireplace is this wonderful mural, this map of Michigan. It was installed a couple of years after the library opened. It was painted by Frederick Wiley, again, the designer of the interiors. And there are very few words on this map. Wiley said that when children are taught by this image, geography becomes a joy. He wanted children to want to learn about geography. So on the left side, you see the wilderness of Michigan when the French came in the early 1700s, the Native Americans, the screech owl, the coyotes, and the rabbits romping through the forest. And on the right side, you have the French when they came to Detroit, and they brought with them their memories from France they left behind, from the beautiful gardens to the fountains and swans. Here you have St. Anne's Church, which is one of the first things the French did when they settled in Detroit, is create and build St. Anne's Church. And I thought I would share with you the motto of Michigan: if you see a pleasant peninsula, look about you. There's so many details on this. I could probably talk for 5 minutes on this. So I wanted to highlight a couple, as I mentioned, Jewish artists that did works at the library. This gentleman is Samuel Cashwan. He was born to Jewish parents in Russia and immigrated with his family to Detroit and settled there. At a young age, he exhibited an interest and talent in art, and his high school teacher from Detroit Central High School encouraged him to continue and study art and his talents. He studied at Detroit City College, which is now Center of Creative Studies, and later at the Architectural League of New York. He was employed by the WPA, which is the Works Progress Administration Federal Art Program, which was a program by President Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal. He was actually the head of sculpture and ceramics for Michigan, a very important title. He was an art instructor at University of Michigan and later hired as a designer for General Motors in a position he held until his retirement. He did a beautiful work of art at the Detroit Public Library called The Adventures of Tom Thumb. It was done in 1936. It is cast bronze. It's about 22 inches tall and a lot of detail here, you can see. Here, two children seem to be mesmerized by Tom Thumb looking at him. And Tom Thumb is sitting on top of flower. And I shot a little detail so you could actually see the details of the petals of the flower and actually Tom Thumb's toes. I was actually counting the toes. This was quite detailed and quite beautiful. It's actually attached to a bench with a red cushion, so people do sit on it. It's quite lovely. And actually just a little more about Samuel Cashwan. He did many sculptures throughout Michigan in public buildings at the Detroit Institute of Art, Belle Isle, the University of Michigan, Michigan State University. And if any of you are from Detroit, he actually did sculptures inside Northland Mall and in the lobby of Congregation Sher Zedek in Southfield. There's a couple sculptures by Samuel Cashwan. So Detroit has this beautiful staircase, but it's not a grand staircase, it's a double grand staircase. There are two staircases made out of that beautiful pink Tennessee marble that leads up to the third floor. The second floor is a mezzanine level, and it's actually all offices. But this is a double grand staircase. And you have a barrel vaulted ceiling. We're going to take a little closer look at that barrel vaulted ceiling. The ceiling actually spans the entire staircase, and it bisects the building. Here the colors are those same colors, antique gold and green, a little more colors in here in blues and this rust color. And this barrel vaulted ceiling is full of information and visuals. You can actually hurt your head by looking up. Actually, when we tour, we tell people, don't look up until we get to the top because there's so much to see. So you see words, letters, and arts, and history, and science, and there's quotes, and there are names of artists, and there's different seals. There's 4 different seals. You see 2 of them here, the seal of the University of Michigan, seal of Michigan, seal of Detroit, and the United States. A beautiful, beautiful ceiling. Again, all designed by Frederick Wiley. And as you walk up the stairs, you are surrounded by these giant murals done by Vincent Adarante and Edwin Blashfield. And the theory is, as you walk up, you would look at these murals that are all about the arts, and you'd be inspired by the library. This one mural we're looking at is called Poetry or the Poets. There are 37 people depicted here. And yes, I've counted everyone. I'll point out a couple and just take a moment to look around to see if you recognize anybody. Because only one I could really recognize in the very beginning was this man because of his beautiful ruffle, Shakespeare. But here you have Mozart, and you have Milton, Shakespeare, Chaucer, Homer, a muse, and you always have a muse to inspire. And on this side, this is Pindar, an ancient Greek poet, Virgil and Dante holding his book. And if you notice, there's different steps here, kind of elevations, and the beautiful colors. I mean, this blue is just striking. Another thing we included in the book, which is really fun to look at, is the legend, which is, kind of tells you who everyone is and where they're placed and why they were placed that way. Why did the artist place them that way? A lot of them, some of them are friends. John Keats and Percy Shelley, I know, were good friends, but you can look at who were poets, and they considered musicians, they were poets. You see Beethoven, Mozart, Bach. Another mural is graphic arts. And here you have 10 different artists depicted, and in the background, 2 people representing architecture. Here you have Titian in this wonderful red, and looking back, Raphael. And I don't know if you can recognize this gentleman. This gentleman is the only one I could recognize, and here the art historian. But here you have Rembrandt right here, and Rubens, Michelangelo, Tintoretto, Velasquez. And this man with a wonderful close-up at his wonderful striped stockings is Durer. Again, the feeling is as you would walk up, you would be inspired by everyone in the arts. Another Jewish artist is Samuel Yellen. Samuel Yellen was born in Russia, and he apprenticed when he was there for a local blacksmith. And by age 16, he became already a master smith. He immigrated with his family to Philadelphia, and that's where he settled and lived. In 1909, he opened up Samuel Yellen Metalworkers, and it has been in continuous operation ever since. In 1920, Yellen's studio employed over 250 people. That was really at the boom of building. And here's just a partial list I found of some of his projects. He did work really all over the country. A couple in the Chicago area I found. He did some of his craftsmanship at the Art Institute of Chicago, Northwestern University, and Chicago University. He also did at Washington National Cathedral and Federal Reserve Bank. And he did all over Detroit. He did a lot of metal work throughout, even at the Detroit Institute of Art, very well known. Iron Gate at the Detroit Public Library. And you're looking at this historic photograph from 1921 with the original fixtures, which is not as there anymore. So this is actually a gate. Every night it is locked by security, and every morning it is actually opened. And this leads into the fine arts room. We're going to take a look at a little bit of detail, but all around here are again zodiac signs that I pointed out. I'll take a look right here. So again, here's the gate, and here is the lock, and here are different zodiac signs. And right here, you have a close-up of this closed book and this lantern on top of it. And again, the library is full of symbolism. A closed book means knowledge. An open book means knowledge to come, or knowledge that, access to knowledge. And a book means enlightenment. So again, everything that you can get from a library, all these wonderful knowledge-based symbolism throughout the library to inspire you. Here is a design, actually the design of the beautiful wrought iron gate, this quatrefoil design, which are really 4 overlapping circles. And in the middle is that rosette again. This decoration was very popular during the Renaissance era. And all around are different zodiac signs. And I thought I would show you one, which is Gemini. Samuel Yellen said, "I love iron. It is the stuff of which the frame of earth is made. And you can make it say anything you will." He was extremely talented, Samuel Yellen. So the next photograph is the Great Delivery Room. This is a large, stately room, measuring 75 square feet by 75 square feet. The ceiling is 36 feet tall, and the design of the ceiling is copied from a small nave from St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. The walls are limestone. It is palatial in proportions. The chandeliers were done by Sterling Company, and there's these tiny little wrought iron tulips all the way around them. So you have to, next time you're there, or please, if you're in Detroit, take a look at this gorgeous room. So this photo was from 2014. It's what the room looks like now. It once was people would gather and get books or read, and the librarians were there. Now it's really, there's tables and chairs for people just to go in and study and read at their leisure. The design of these beautiful windows, these 3 windows we're looking at, are Italian Renaissance in character. It's supposed to look like a title page from a manuscript, an illuminated manuscript. Throughout the windows, you can see symbolism, mythology, Latin, there's muses and angels, and quotes and creatures. And under the ceiling, right here, are different quotes. And on this south side, this quote is from Cass Gilbert. It says, "Books are the most enduring monuments of man's achievement. Through them, civilization becomes cumulative." The next photo I'm going to show you is this wonderful central window here. There you can see this beautiful detail. So the windows were designed for a purpose. The admission of white light from behind them, there's a light vault. So during the day, the windows are illuminated very bright, but at night you can't see them. The color is this light gray, this bright silver gray, and it's pops of colors through it. These are painted windows. They are not stained glass window. The process is very different. An opaque window and stained glass windows are rather opaque, and these are not. Here you can see in the middle, I'm going to point out a couple of features. You have this beautiful angel with these wings, and the word is spiro, meaning to breathe in everything you could take in from the library. You have another angel sitting right here with outstretched arms. And you also have an architectural border surrounding, which is framed with peacocks and egrets and sphinx and different flora arabesques. And on the bottom is a quote from the Canadian scientist George Mercer Dawson: "The great consulting room of a wise man is a library." Mr. Dawson said this in a speech in 1866 at the dedication of the Birmingham, England Free Library. This is the civics room, or social studies room, so to say. Please note the beautiful herringbone oak floor, the built-in wood cabinets, the original furniture. These are pocket doors for sound insulation. And underneath several of these rooms is also compressed cork for sound insulation. The room doesn't look like this today. It's carpeted. One time at the Detroit Public Library. It was copied from one of the ceilings from Doge's Palace in Venice, Italy. Quite beautiful. There are rosettes there and canvas sleeves. And the next slide, I'm going to show you a small detail, which is the corner. This little corner here, which is these beautiful book-bearing angels. And now you can really see how elaborate the ceiling is. The angels with their colorful wings are holding a book. And we say, even the angels hold books. Again, books is knowledge, everything you can gain from a library. And you see how elaborate these are, canna sleeves. You'll see rosettes everywhere. Quite beautiful. We're back to that fabulous photograph from 1921, because I'm going to show you one of the great secrets of the Detroit Public Library. It's called the loggia. It's this area in through here in these 7 arches. A loggia actually means one side open to the outside. And it was a commonly used architectural feature during the Renaissance to express grace and harmony. We're going to be looking at the ceiling of the loggia. So at one point, those were all doors you're looking at, but now they're windows. People used to go outside, but very rarely are people let outside anymore. We had a couple tours where people were let outside, but those were special tours. So now we're going to take a look at the loggia area. So you are looking at all different arches, the 7 different arches. Frederick Wiley designed the arches, and they were executed by Pewabic pottery. This is a mosaic. They're made up of tiny baked clay tiles. This is not glass. Wiley chose the subject for the ceiling decoration from William Shakespeare's As You Like It, The 7 Ages of Man, where each arch is a different phase of man's life. It is one of Shakespeare's most frequently quoted passages. All the world's a stage, and the men and women merely players. They have their exits and they have their entrances. And one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. Infancy, boyhood, lover, soldier, justice, old age, and decrepitude. So again, this is the ceiling. This would be the exterior outside, and this would be the inside of the library. Here you have one of the arches, the first arch, which is infancy. And every arch is a different color, has a different quote and different symbolism. We have infancy here, the quote is up there. We have storks, which represent babies, and an open book, access to knowledge. And in the corner is a rectangle, which is Cass Gilbert's name. It was often that architects would sign their name to buildings, and we like to think that that was why his name is actually there. And the next I'll show you the 4th arch, which is soldier, jealous and honor, sudden and quick and quarrel. And you can see the colors are completely different from these beautiful yellow and rust colors and blues. It's just magnificent. On the floor of the loggia, there are giant floodlights. So when the lights come on, the tile just illuminates, and especially the gold, it sparkles and glistens. This photo is from 1950. It's taken on the steps of the DIA, the Detroit Institute of Art, which again is exactly across the street. And again, their front doors line up exactly. Love this photo because you really can see the loggia area now in the 7 arch. That is the loggia. And also love these historic cars here. So in the late 1950s, they decided to have an addition. The population was growing and they needed to increase the size of it. It took 5 years to build. It opened in 1963. They added 240,000 square feet, adding a north and south wing. Here is a view of the vast excavation. They actually removed some of the terraces, and you can see how the technology has changed from 1915. Interesting that the architects of the addition was Francis Keeley and Cass Gilbert Jr. So you have Cass Gilbert, the father, designed the original building, and the addition was done by his son. A wonderful father-son connection there. This is the Burton Historic Collection. In 1914, Clarence Monroe Burton donated his entire private library to the Detroit Public Library and hence established the Burton Historic Collection. This is a Burton reading room. You can see very different, looks very different than the other rooms I've showed you. The mid-century modern design, the furniture, the card catalogs, the different tables. And you can see on the balcony, this beautiful stainless steel and brass railing that was designed by Francis Keeley. The Burton Historic Room, the Burton Reading Room, is the point of access for all the special collections at the library. They have the Ernie Harwell collection, a lot of baseball and sports, the E. Azalea Hackley which is African Americans in Performing Arts. They have periodicals and family histories and manuscript and rare book collections. So speaking about rare book collection, I mentioned one of the commissioners was Henry Myers. Henry Myers donated this book, the Presidential Book of Letters, which contains presidential letters from all the presidents. He actually collected the letters over 5 years. He was always seeking to better the collection. So sometimes he would buy a letter, put it in, and then find a better letter and switch it up. He actually supervised the case, which you're looking at on the left, and the title page, which was designed, you're looking at it on the right, Presidents of the United States. It was designed and illuminated in gold leaf by Gustav Lang from Tiffany's. Many of the letters are historically unimportant, such as James Madison wrote of sheep raising, Martin Van Buren bet an excellent beaver hat over an election result, and John Tyler asked a friend to give his nephew a job. But the most significant letter in the collection was this 4-page handwritten letter by Thomas Jefferson. It is remarkable. His letter is an eloquent plea for funds to complete the building of the University of Virginia. His work succeeded and the funds were secured for his finest project. This letter is 4 pages. So interesting that Henry Myers died in the 1950s. And so the collection was essentially stopped. But his daughter, who is Joan Jampel, that lives outside of Detroit, several years ago, contacted me to continue his legacy. And she was able, through the Detroit Public Library, Mark Bowden, the special collections coordinator, finish the collection. So I'm going to show you some more recent photographs, which is this wonderful one from John F. Kennedy in 1993, where he recommends Detroit for the venue for the Olympic Games. He talks about Detroit having national strength and determination. Now, it wasn't selected, but it's a wonderful letter. There's also a letter I think I put in here from Lyndon Johnson in 1965, sending greetings to the American Library Association convention. One from Jimmy Carter. This is a great story. We didn't have one for Jimmy Carter, really couldn't find one. But Mark Bowden, who is the special collections coordinator, decided to write to the Carter Library, Presidential Library. They contacted Jimmy Carter and he sent this to us. So I thought that was a wonderful thing. I think I might have one more. Yes. US Senator Carl Levin donated several actually letters to the collection. This one was from Bill Clinton, thanking him for his leadership on national security in 2009. So again, the Detroit Public Library has an incredible rare book collection. And this is really one of the highlights, having one book with letters from every president up to Trump. So if you're ever there, I would suggest, making maybe an appointment, that it's really something to see. It's really remarkable. So now we're going to go to the really present day library, 21st century library. Our library is still important. People always ask that. Yes, public libraries are important today as ever. The really mission is the same for a library, providing free access to information to all people. However, the way we access information is quite different. Libraries provide free access to computers and Wi-Fi. They're community gathering space. You can hold a meeting there, lectures, story time for children, wonderful classes from language, resume, technology classes. They're a cooling and warming center, and they're a safe haven. I used to tell the story that one of our docents would always go on a first date at the Detroit Public Library because she knew it was a safe place to meet somebody. So this is a wonder. We love this photograph because here you have these beautiful painted windows and this grand staircase, and this gentleman that happens to be a friend of mine's son sitting there on his technology, on his phone. Kind of two cultures coming together as one. So the last area I'm really going to talk about is this wonderful Lighting Up Literacy project that was created by Gail Rosenblum Kaplan and Donnie Katzler, which are two Jewish community incredible artists. Donnie was actually born in Hungary and immigrated with his family to Israel, where he was raised. In 1983, he came to Chicago, first time ever, and he visited a Victorian home and saw stained glass windows for the first time and discovered his future passion, glass. And Gail Rosenblum Kaplan is a native of Michigan. Actually, she's a good friend. She always inspires me to do things. She received her BA from University of Michigan. Her works include mixed media and clay and printmaking. And she believes art has the power to heal. She actually does a lot with Judaic art. I've been involved with a lot of projects with her, girlfriend projects where we make wonderful mezuzahs or candlesticks. A couple of years ago, I made a apples and honey plate. She's so creative. And she came to the library and actually helped us figure out what to do. We really wanted to do something for the children's library room. The walls were pretty barren and were all white. And she had this wonderful idea, which now we call Lighting Up Literacy, where she would go into Detroit public schools and work with the students to make these mosaics. The children were given a theme and the students would make drawings. And here you see Gail, and you see the different themes of, we'll look at some closely. And here they have drawings. She would take their drawings and she would transfer it onto this wooden design. And then they would go back into the schools and they would actually cut the glass and glue and make these beautiful mosaics. And here you're actually seeing the students in Detroit Public Schools actually making a mosaic. And this one is actually healthy living. I can see the living there. It's really a fun project. I actually worked on it. So let's take a look at some of them. And you can see what we did is we put them over each of the bookshelves. These are all beautiful glass mosaics. There's over 9 of them. Look at them a little closely. We can look up. The first one we did is read. And actually I can tell you, I did this area right here, the very top area. I did a couple of those. It's really quite beautiful. The bottom one is earth, and I'm going to show you another close-up of that. That's actually a triple mosaic. And actually 400 students were involved in doing that. And there's over 12,000 pieces of glass. The top one is music, and the bottom one is transportation. And Gail came up with this wonderful idea to hide some symbols, almost like a Where's Waldo, kind of. So let's just say you were there with one child you could really talk about or go play a game. In all of the mosaics, she hid symbols from the Old English D you're looking at here. She hid the words DPL, which here you can see DPL. She hid numbers for the Dewey Decimal System. Again, these were learning opportunities you could talk to students about. Each mosaic had the name of the school that participated. This was Burton Elementary that did this one. Gail also hid a pencil, which represents imagination or language development. So it's really just a wonderful project. Again, on the bottom is transportation. You can see a bicycle and bus, DPL. I don't know if any of you had a moment to look to see if you could find the pencil in the bottom one or the Old English D. They're really hard to find. It's harder in a situation like this. But here is the pencil and the Old English D. So here you can see earth. You can really see the scale of it. Really, it was just remarkable. It was done by actually the alumni group from Pastor Elementary School. And you see Gail actually in the middle here. And here I am on the side. And this is, and the woman in purple is Joanne Mondani. She's the director of the whole entire Detroit Public Library system, a remarkable woman. But the best part of this project, I thought, was we invite the students to come in, to look at them installed, and they were invited to bring their families, they brought their neighbors, and we had a little like dessert reception of cookies for them. And they were so proud to show their family, what they did. They would point out, exactly what they worked on. It was a wonderful way to engage Detroit Public Schools, community artists, and something really to be proud of. So if you're there, please go take a look at that. This is really the last photograph. It's just fun. This is in the book, but I love to show this to people. This is actually a real photograph. This is not Photoshop. This is a nonprofit group called 501 Legion, which was founded in 1995, which mission is to promote interest in Star Wars through building and the wearing of costumes. This is an all volunteer organization. I see Eileen smiling because it's really remarkable. And they actually came there on one Sunday morning in 2014. Boy, traffic was stopped. Boy, people were looking at it. And you can see right in the middle, Darth Vader right here. Is that great? It's fabulous. And again, not Photoshop. That's how many people were there. And I just want to end my presentation on a card catalog. how can you talk about a library, show my book without saying this gorgeous picture of a card catalog? So thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please, next time you're in Detroit, look at the library, the Detroit Public Library. You'll have to please check before you go to see if it's open and the hours. You know, I think they're open now, but I think you can only go in for 1 hour. And I'm not sure if you need to make a reservation with COVID, but it's a lot to offer and a beautiful building to explore. And thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Barbara. This was fascinating. I want to come visit the Detroit Public Library.
Come, I'll take you on a tour.
We're going. We're gonna make a trip.
Yes.
We'll do a field trip. So
we have a few questions on the side, if I can go through them. So one question was, where did the funds come from to build the Detroit Library?
So the initial funds was through Andrew Carnegie. He donated $375,000, and then through the millages, you know, through the city. And now there's still being, you know, there's still a millage. So it's troubling. That needs a lot of work, and eventually they're going to talk about a capital campaign, because you know, it's an old building.
Right. What Davida asked for the address of the building.
Oh my gosh. Actually, forget the address. It's off Woodward. I'm embarrassed. I don't remember the address. I want to say 5801 Woodward Avenue. So it's right across from the Detroit Institute of Arts on Woodward Avenue.
And Susan asked, why was the Central Park Library demolished instead of restored? Sorry.
Yeah. So you know what? They decided to build a different library. There's a branch called the Skillment Library. So they actually built another one kind of very close to it. And they decided with building products and just to build a new library, which was much larger and bigger. So there is one very close to that central library. So.
And Linda asked, was the location for the DIA chosen because the library was there?
You can repeat that?
Yeah, sure. Was the location for the DIA chosen because the library was there?
Great question. It was really interesting that Detroit had actually asked Frank Miles Day from Philadelphia and Edward Bennett, Chicago, to come in and actually do a planning of the area. And it was actually designed, it was called the Cultural Center, where the DIA would be there and the Detroit Public Library. So it's kind of away from the downtown area, kind of moving out toward, away from the combustion of all the buildings in a way, and it was actually designed that way. And as I mentioned, which is quite remarkable, that the front doors line up exactly of both buildings, the DIA and the DPL. They're both white Vermont marble. They're both have names of different writers around the library and artists around the Detroit Public, the DIA. So there's a lot of similarities in it, but it's really kind of like this cultural center. And it was done purposeful.
And Linda also asked, how can you join a tour?
So they're not doing tours anymore. So I don't know what to say to you. You can feel free to contact me, and they might be doing them later. I'm not at the library anymore. I left in 2018, and I think they'd stopped doing them around 2019. So I don't know what the status is. I know there's other, might be Historic Preservation Detroit might do it. There's other companies that is part of a tour of Detroit do take you to the library. But yeah, they don't do tours anymore. But I don't know what's going to go on in the future. But you know, yeah, I'll tell you, it is a place you can go really to do a self-guided tour. And that's originally I started, I thought, I should just create the self-guided tour. But then anyway, people want to come back and look at it. But really, you can go through the building yourself, and I really recommend it. So, and then buy the book. So I think they sell it there at the front desk there. So.
And you were really close to the address, Barbara. It's 5201 Woodward.
Oh God, I'm so close.
You're so close.
You know what I found interesting was that when I think about the Cultural Center in Chicago, which was our first public library, those grand buildings that were built, the way that they thought of a library, how they elevated it with the art.
Yes.
It reminded me so much of the Cultural Center. And then it's interesting that ours is also right across from the Art Institute. And so I did a little research while you were talking, and I saw that Chicago, so in the Midwest, your library system is actually the largest library system. And then comes Chicago, which I found fascinating. And it does make you wonder about the usage of a library today.
Right.
I think of the library as a community center. Like I'm an avid library user, and the library is what saved me through COVID. Because I could call the library, they get me the books that I wanted to read. They put it outside on a cart. They couldn't have made it easier. And so I wonder, do you find library usage up, down? Do you know?
Well, I mean, I don't think we could talk right now with COVID.
Right, right.
Everything has kind of changed, but I will tell you, talking about Detroit, I will say, let's talk about separately Detroit. I do think that a lot of people in Detroit are dependent on the library for Wi-Fi, for computers. I mean, you will go into the library and see every single computer taken. So yes, I think Detroit people really use the libraries there. I would say most for computers, but that's a lifeline to people. Wonderful classes at the Woodward one. They teach classes and everything you can possibly imagine. You will see every seat taken, learning how to do resume, how to use technology, how to do emails. So I do think people do use the library for different reasons. And I talked a little bit about that, access information. I'm also a big library gal. I take up books. I really try not to buy books. I love the library. I do use the books, but something you said that really, makes me think that it's a community gathering space. People go there for meetings. I mentioned warming center. I see people in there, their heat doesn't work, or they don't have air conditioning. You'll just see people there. Just go in when just sit down and read, just sit down and relax. I mean, it serves many purposes. So it's a very important part of our society and really municipal asset. So, and a safe haven, which I always think too, somewhere safe to go.
Absolutely. I love the idea of having a first date there.
I know. Somebody I know that she said, I decided I'm coming here for all my first dates. And she'll say, I feel safe here. I don't have to worry about it. And so I'm spreading the word. Go to first dates to libraries. So.
And you're amongst friends, all those books, they're friends. So I just adored that. Thank you so much. This was fabulous. One last question. Susan asked, can you imagine how the children that help make the mosaics, can you imagine them bringing their children to see their work? I mean, the impact that our project made, fabulous, just fabulous.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, that program was absolutely incredible. People, and Gail and Donnie, myself, this group of us, they had to get it funded. And we got it funded, and you do it for the children. And to really, like she said, memories, years to come, they'll be able to say, I worked on that piece right there. Really, it's wonderful. And we're actually strategics in putting them up. They're not permanent. They're actually held up so they could be moved in the future, really looking at everything. You never know with things to be moved. But that touched so many children, that project, going into 9 different schools. Really, and Gail's vision and Donnie of hiding different symbols, and going around and looking at them, can you find it? And groups looking, where's the pencil? I can't find it. Yeah. Where's the Old English D? It's kind of a fun Waldo game to play. So,
Linda has commented that she grew up in Detroit, and her library was the Francis Parkman branch.
Oh, Parkman.
Saying that when she moved to Chicago, all the branch libraries were in storefronts. And she missed that grandeur and the inspiration. And she's noted that the branch libraries are better in Chicago now than they were before, but she wondered, did Detroit continue to build gorgeous branches, or are they, more like the ones that we're used to in Chicago that are more utilitarian?
They haven't built branches in many, many years. A lot of them have been closed, actually. But the Parkman is still around, and it is a beautiful building, by the way, Linda. So really, I've been there several times, and they do great things. That community is a remarkable community that go to Parkman. They're a very active community. They have a very vibrant youth computer coding program, actually, where they have taught kids how to do coding. It's actually won incredible awards. But there has been no new branches. They've actually started renovating the branches, which is really good. These are very old buildings, very significant buildings. They've done a lot of renovations and updating buildings. So that's really what they focused on now. But I don't think there's been any new branches. And at one point they were 46. I think now there's 21 branches left.
Wow.
But I will tell you that Chicago actually, Detroit looked to Chicago. They used to travel to Chicago to look to see what Chicago was doing and come back. And actually it's funny you're saying they're sparking my research that I did, that they looked at Chicago and came back and said, branch libraries, how you were putting it in storefronts. I know that Detroit even had library branches in factories. They had factory branches where people that worked in factory, the Detroit Public Library would come with books, they could take them out. So times are different, but they kind of looked where people were.
They are still building branches in Chicago for sure. I think one of the newer ones just before COVID, the library in West Rogers Park opened. Devorah, are
Yes.
you? Because Devorah lives in West Rogers Park.
Yeah, they just opened a branch on Pratt and Western, and above it is senior housing.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I think, so in West Rogers Park, there's an organization, there's a Jewish organization. It's like a community organization, and they were instrumental in getting that library built. So I know they're still building branches in Chicago.
Wow, that's really encouraging.
Yes.
Field trip.
Yes.
Both ways.
It was a storefront. So it's exciting to have a nice big library with a parking lot.
Yes, parking is a challenge in Detroit.
Yes.
In Chicago as well,
Well, one last question. Where can
we
purchase your book from?
I'm sorry?
Where can we purchase your book?
Oh gosh, well, it is on Amazon. I will tell you that. So that's probably the
link.
Easiest for you. Locally, there's a lot of local stores in Detroit. The DIA, Detroit's Art carries it. A lot of local stores here, but in Chicago, I don't, probably easiest through Amazon. Or you could actually go right to Wayne State University Press. So that's where it's published out of.
Here we go. I just put a link in the chat.
Oh, good.
Oh, it's temporarily out of stock.
Oh, wow. Well, it's probably COVID actually, because I see a lot out of stock there. But maybe try the Detroit Institute of Art, Wayne State University Press. You can go right through the publisher. They do sell and they ship them. It's a beautiful book. And as I said, if you buy it, we don't receive any. And we purposely felt we wanted to give back to the library something. So they receive any funding that comes back goes to them.
Such a wonderful idea. And so,
we thought it was. We thought it'd be good to do something for the community.
That's a good thing to do. So,
and here is a link to it on the Wayne State Press website.
Wayne State University Press.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Barbara, you're amazing.
I appreciated this. It was much fun. Oh my goodness, I see my friend Orna. Hi, Orna.
It was
You know, I
very
was not
interesting.
thanking everybody. My friend
So
Orna.
wonderful to have you all join us, but especially Barbara, thank you so much for your time, your generosity and your knowledge. And, you know, as the world starts to open up, JCC Chicago will be doing some field trips. And I'm thinking that we have to make Detroit one of our destinations because
Absolutely. I will take you around, right, Orna?
That's right.
My friend Orna. Yeah, absolutely. It's so easy. It's so easy. There's so much to see. And if you haven't been to Detroit, it's so different the last 7-8 years. It's really building up. It's wonderful culture all over. Lots to do. So, and you'll let me know. I'd be happy to take you guys on a tour. Library. I'm a docent at the DIA. We could do both. We could go one, then we'll go across the street. So.
you don't know who you're dealing with. I will take you up on it and we will be there.
Going too.
I wish you and your family good health.
Thank you.
And, you know, and I hope, you know, enjoy the summer and, you know, look for us. I think, you know, we'll probably put off traveling a bit until next spring when we can feel more confident that there won't be any more spread, you
I
know.
agree. Especially
God
going
willing.
on a bus or what have you.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're looking more towards next spring, but you will hear from us. And thank you very much. Everybody have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thanks, Barbara.